I know we sometimes hear that our churches, well, from people who may have immigrated or from our parents, well, we don't feel the same spirituality as maybe the churches in Egypt. Do you think that's true, or do you think that that's maybe just we have a different way of showing spirituality or feeling spirituality here in the States or elsewhere?
I actually don't think it's true at all. I think by their own admission, there are a lot of people who go to church regularly in America, Canada, Australia, England, who probably didn't do so in Egypt. Because once they've moved, the church becomes a much greater support for them and a place of pastoral and social care for them. So I don't think that's the case. I've dealt with a lot of bishops who have come through the UK and dealing with other people, priests who have looked at the sorts of ministries we do and have been very, very, I think, touched by it, and not realized that so much is done for the church outside of Egypt. So, is it weaker? Definitely not. Is it different? Definitely. Of course it's different. But then again, if you go to Egypt, it's very different serving in Cairo. You'll find ministry different in Cairo, to Alexandria, to Upper Egypt. Every area deals with a particular framework, mentality, demographic makeup. The other thing I think about the churches outside of Egypt is that it varies from church to church. Some churches are very dynamic, others aren't. So I think it would be unfair to say that the service outside of Egypt is less spiritual. Definitely it's different. There are some parishes, many parishes, I'd say most parishes, who do an immense amount of work at every level, whether it's children's ministry, youth ministry, adult ministry. And following from the example of the apostles, it's really a way in which they have told us that we should be tailoring ministry to people. We have certain things that are given and that do not change. Our dogma, our theology, our sacramental life, they don't change. They're not even negotiable. The only way they can change is through the Holy Synod. But on a day-to-day basis, at a parish level, at a diocese level, they don't change. If we then hold those firm, but then things around them change, that's fine. So our liturgies are still very much the same, but when we're having youth conventions like this, the kind of prayer, the kind of Western contemporary worship, even the delivery of lectures and material itself is very different. So I think there's an awful lot being done for people. The harvest truly is great, as our Lord said, and a lot more needs to be done. And I think one of the challenging things is every time you feel that you've got something, you feel, okay, now it's time to change. I've got to do a new thing. Because people have moved on. And we have to keep engaging them.
Well, and we're in a generation that, what's the next best thing? What's the next best thing, and how fast can we get it done? As opposed to, this is tradition the way that it's been, we'll keep doing delivery or, doing things the same way because this is, how we do it.
I agree. We're a very instantaneous generation now where you want access to 500 channels, you press one button. And if you want full access, use your remote control. If you want a meal, when we first started, you'd have to go and hunt an animal and bring it back. Then you'd have to go down to the local farm. Then you go to the supermarket. Now you dial a pizza. Everything comes to your door. And then you have instant meals. Everything has become very instant. Everything's very fast. If you wanted to send a message before, from carrier pigeon to post. Now if you're talking about email, if a message doesn't get there in the next 2 seconds, you think it's slow. If you have a slightly slow connection, you become very frustrated. And if that wasn't enough, now you get everything in a mobile way. So on your mobile phone, you get your email, your web access. It's a very instantaneous generation that makes ministry very difficult. But at the same time, what it does, it gives us more and more opportunities. So for instance, in the UK, we have a service now, we have had for a good number of years now, maybe 7 or 8 years, where we send out all of daily readings by email. And that was good when it used to hit people's desks. But a lot of people may not have read it straight away, or it got spammed, or something happened. Now that most people receive their email on their phones, they get it instantly. And so a number of people have said to me, you know, we're very thankful for the daily readings coming out because we don't get a chance to read our Bible, but when I'm on the train or the bus in the morning, or if I'm sitting at lunchtime, I've got it on my PDA, I've got it on my phone, so I can actually read. So while it becomes challenging, it gives us a lot of very new and very exciting ways of trying to deal with people and serving them.
Very true. That's true. Always have to keep up with technology to keep up with service.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah, and I think we've got to keep being very dynamic. We can't, the thing about service is you can never become suddenly comfortable and say, I've done it. We should never keep beating ourselves up for not doing enough, because that's counterproductive. But to sit back and complacently say, well, I've done it, that's it, is not good enough either, because it's constantly changing, and so we need to be constantly addressing that change.
But regardless of the technology that comes out, what do you suggest to motivate the next generation of youth to become the next church leaders, and to want to take that step forward and step up and serve and take the church to the next level, where maybe myself or our parents' generation or generations before us wouldn't be able to harness the technology that we have today to take things to the next level. So what suggestions do you have in terms of motivating the youth to take the next step?
I think it's a matter of survival. I think we need to explain to them that their Christian life is not an optional extra. It's not something that is just to make them comfortable in their life. It's an essential, it's a necessity. And so I think if we manage to explain that, they themselves become creative. And we've got to be able to take their creativity and direct it somehow. I think it's a mistake to constantly keep telling them, this is what you need to do, this is our vision. I think we need to incorporate people into developing the vision. And I'm a very, very strong believer in interaction. I think it's very wrong for us to try to tailor everything for young people because young people are the future and leave everybody else behind. Because young people today are not going to be young people in 10 years' time, and they'll become very alienated when we leave them behind. And at the same time, they have an immense amount of experience, vision, that they can incorporate into the vision and experience of new people. So it always has to be a handing down, and that's always been the tradition we've had, handing down from generation to generation. Whether it was pastorally, from our Lord to his disciples, to their disciples to us, whether it's in a monastic movement, in discipleship and mentoring, whether it's in service generally, spiritual life, spiritual guidance, it always has this component of handing over. And we have to be aware of that and try to address it properly. I want to address one word with you that you mentioned, that is leaders. I think we are talking too much about leaders these days, not enough about servants. And it's a Western terminology. So we're taking it on board and we're using it, but I think we're also tailoring our ministry to that same concept. I think the best way to lead people is to lead them by example. And in the example of our Lord himself, he came to be a servant unto all. So if we want to provide that kind of environment and experience and understanding for those who come after us, we need to be servants to them, in every sense of the word. And that puts a great responsibility and onus on servants. Because once you become a servant, if you lead a dual life, you are going to be branded with that awful word people use now of hypocrisy. Because young people are very sensitive to conflict and contradiction. And so if we want to really lead the coming generations, we need to be a generation of servants who put God before everything in their lives. They're successful in all they do, in their studies, in their work, in their families, in their social life, in everything. So God is incorporated into all of that and becomes the foundation of all of that. But at the same time, lead people by example so they can see that I can be a good, godly young person without any conflict or contradiction.
Thank you, Sayyidina, very much for your time. I think that your words were very much jewels to us and to those who will hear them and I hope that everyone takes these words to heart and realizes that this is very important for us as youth in this generation and future generations and in this country or in this area to, understand what it means to have God as a means of our survival, and it's not the next, technology that will save us from the challenges that we're facing today. And it's not about us being, a quick, me generation, instantaneous. But thank you very much for being with us on our 10th anniversary, and congratulations on your 10th anniversary. And thank you very much.